this is going back to a previous topic, but I think that is where like sometimes your character comes, where it's like if it was something where you didn't have good planning skills or prioritizing skills or work ethic, integrity, all those things, it'd be a lot harder. But anyways, just side tangents. The point is sometimes you can really benefit from putting life first, and you can live with no regrets by doing it that way.
This episode is brought to you by Baseco. Baseco Foundation and Concrete Solutions specialize in foundation repair, waterproofing, and concrete lifting. They have the ability to lift settled or sinking foundations, permanently waterproof homes and structures, underpin and support new foundations and structures, erect sizable block retaining walls, and lift settled concrete slabs, including sidewalks, driveways, patios, and garage floors.
Yeah, I know Rock personally, and he's a close friend, and I wouldn't trust anyone else as a real estate investor. The foundation's the most important piece, and it can make or break any deal. So we appreciate Baseco. This episode is brought to you by Big Storage Ventures. We are now inviting you to team up and partner alongside us. We bring our experience hunting storage deals and maximizing the self-storage asset to provide our partners with cash flow, tax benefits, and appreciation, all in one recession-resistant asset. Leverage our sister company, Big Ben's Moving Service, to fill your facility and give you an edge over the competition. Reach out to bigstorageventures@gmail.com or DM Big Storage Ventures on Instagram to team up. I think it's important, to bring up work-life balance, because it should be life-work balance, right? Like, you're on this planet to live, right? And part of it, early on in the scriptures, it says, by the sweat of your brow, you got to eat your bread, right? Mm-hmm. So work is intentionally a part of it, and it is slothful to try to get out of it, but it's also wrong to put work ahead of relationships and God and more important things. So I think it's something we bring up with our Beyond Networth guests, because the winner is not the one with the most dollars in the bank at the end of their life. The winner is whoever has the most strong relationships. You know what I mean?
Well, there's actually studies that are coming out, and if you can measure happiness, they're trying to do it.
Yeah.
But
I think you can.
Yeah. I mean, people have come out and said that relationships are going to bring some of the most joy, and not the money in your bank account. I mean, imagine if you had, if I said, okay, if you had $1 billion, let me back up. I'm going to back up to Maddie's family reunion, the very first one I ever went to. So Rob Fielding, he was talking with me. We were playing horseshoes. They do a tournament.
Yeah.
And we had this amazing talk, and he was telling me his story, which is incredible. He was making tons of money with this business, and then he came into this big ethical dilemma. There was some dishonesty what they were doing, and he approached, his boss, and he just completely ignored him and whatever. And he didn't feel, he was making really, really good money, but he had to make that decision. Am I going to put my values, his moral character, he's going to put those things above or below his paycheck? And he had to make he made the hard decision to leave it.
Yeah.
And, he's been a really good example. So he asked me this, he was like, if I give you $1 million, if I told you I'd give you $1 million right now, but I can't tell you what you have to do to get it. Right? So you can have $1 million right now.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you have to do. Would you take it? And $1 million's not very much anymore. Let's say $1 billion. Let's say, okay, $500 million. A lot of money. You don't.
Thinking of all the terrible things I'd do for $1 billion.
$1 billion. But you don't know what you have to do to get it. Would you take $1 billion? And really think about it. And I was like, I don't know. But he said, okay, here's the thing you'd have to do. You'd have to go to prison. You have $1 billion, but you got to go to prison. Just sit there in a cell by yourself.
For how long?
Forever.
Of course not.
But the point is like, and it stuck with me, right? It was like, you could have all the money in the world, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the people, if you don't have the freedom, you know. And we've talked about people even in our own town who've committed huge frauds, compromised their integrity. It's in the news. There was an FBI bust recently.
Oh yeah.
But it's people with families, lots of kids, and they lose their way, and now they're going to jail.
Yeah.
For a few extra bucks.
Yeah. And so there's that side of it, right? Where people lose track of their integrity.
Yeah. I kind of tangent down that.
No, it's important, right? So there's people lose track of their integrity, but there's also people that just lose track of their priorities, right? Which to me, like, you don't have to do anything. Like, obviously it can get there if you have that type of greed or that type of lust for money, but you can lose track of your family, you know, just working at the wrong times. Like, a good example is we started doing our podcast during the day so that we can be with our wives at night, right? Like, that was the price that doing this was costing us, was probably starting to not be worth it after a couple months in a row of taking 1 or 2 evenings a week out of our time with our families, right? So I think it was very good that we switched it to the daytime thing, right? Because now we can compartmentalize our time and have more time with our family. You know what I mean? And I think life is so short, you know, like, you never know, kind of like your example, like you've seen, they do this corny thing and on Instagram where they say, if I give you $1 billion, but you had to die in 3 days or something like that. It's like, would you take it? It's like, no. Well, it's like, okay, well then your daily breath is more valuable to you than that money, right? And it's just putting things like that in perspective. I've watched friends that have lost loved ones before they've carved out time. You know, they say, well, right now is when I got to put my head down and do this, and I'll spend time with them later, right? And it's just,
yes,
to me, it's a great tragedy. So I think it's really important. And I think travel, not only is it a good way to kind of trap yourself with your loved ones, right? Like, there's less, you know, like I always tell Lauren, like, when we're about to do a trip, she's always worried about the flight and the baby and stuff. I'm like, look, we get each other for a week or 2, you know, like or 3 days, right? It's like, I'm going to be so focused on you. It's going to be awesome, and vice versa. And to me, it's actually healthy for a business to have a stress test of you being away. And you can still take calls depending on how much you want to stay involved, but it's a good stress test. It's a good way to, you know, sit on the plane with no service and read a book and think about your business and really, like, how can I be more productive? How can I help people more? And also, you get to see things from a different perspective, right? Which maybe isn't as directly applicable, but it's really helpful for your life. You know, just like when you go to Egypt and you see the poorest people in the world, and you think of Egypt, you don't picture like them being as poor as some of the people in Central and South Africa. They are. They're dirt poor. They're living in poverty. And it's just a good gratitude reminder too, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's actually a few things that I've been thinking about, but I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. This is going back to a previous topic, but I think that is where, like, sometimes your character comes, where it's like, if it was something where you didn't have good planning skills or prioritizing skills or work ethic, integrity, all those things, it'd be a lot harder. But anyways, just side tangents. The point is sometimes you can really benefit from putting life first, and you can live with no regrets by doing it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I really, really appreciate it.
It's kind of fun, kind of good timing.
Oh, that is. It's like a bucket list thing. I was reflecting on that a little bit, and like, I can't remember. I swear I just hit a bucket list item.
You just went to Europe.
yeah, that was definitely a huge bucket list item. But I even like, we're about to, for PAL.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's been on my bucket list. Like, my goals are obviously, my goals are super low, but it's like a week in Lake Powell has always, and I'm like, that's going to happen like this year. I'm going to do a whole week in Lake Powell.
Yeah.
And just really grateful and really, really excited about that. And
that's a pretty high goal. I don't think many people have done that.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things. I did have a lot. I was thinking about a lot of things when you were talking just about relationships and like travel, and so I want to maybe jump back and kind of share some of my thoughts, because I think it's true, and I just want to add that, like, being able to go on a trip, I need to be able to prioritize it more, because it was so good to go on a trip with just Maddie and I, and just focus on each other. And I think that's and like the whole perspective thing that you're saying, it's like when you're out there, everything is different. Like when you're on a vacation, you see the world completely differently, and it's crazy. But it's like every day, just for a week, it's like you get to think about how you're going to entertain yourself, what you're going to feed yourself, like how much fun, like your family, like who you're with right there, like what you're going to do with that person, and you just fill it with that, and it's just so great and so awesome. And I'm excited. Like, Alaska is definitely one of those biggest things. One of my biggest regrets is not letting Dr. Perry take me to Alaska before my mission.
That's funny.
Because I messed it up. So I ruined that opportunity.
No. Well, redemption, man. But I think, kind of just to cap up this thought, I think I got fortunate, honestly. Like, you look back and I see it as inspired, because early on I got invited to go to Thailand. That was like my first big international trip. And it was right after college, and it was the first time I didn't have football practice or a job that I was locked into, and I got to go do that. And I think before that, honestly, like I was very narrow-minded. Like I was just like, I actually probably maybe was jealous or spiteful of people, because I liked being in St. George, and I was like, I don't really need to travel to be happy. I just like to be at the lake and the red mountains in the background. Like, why would I want to go travel? That sounds so dumb. Right. And then I got my eyes open, but I just think it's really, really a good way to use your resources compared to maybe like goods, like things. And I think if you know me, you know that my hood has a chip, and you know that my my room is like, not all my socks are folded, like, but I really like carving out those big moments. And I think trips, and you don't have to go anywhere far, even just taking your family a half an hour away to Pine Valley where there's no service, like that counts, right?
Definitely.
But I think carving out those experiences is like a top priority for work-life balance.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to now jump back again to the whole trust thing that you mentioned earlier. And I think trust is a really good word. And I think it's a good thing to think about in all of our relationships, whether it's a business relationship, whether it's, your wife or your kids or whatever. But you have to do those things to build trust. And I remember someone sharing with me, it's a book, someone could probably reach out to me and tell me, but they would talk about things as like a bank account. So like there's like
Trust Bank.
Yeah. Like a trust.
Probably my mom.
Did your mom know that book?
Well, my mom and my dad, but they always say, you're losing money in the trust bank when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah.
They say, we're so proud of you. You just put trust in the trust bank.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that people can critique that, but it's funny because that's how I grew up, was with the trust bank.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but about your parents and the trust bank.
Yeah.
But so they say like, you put in and sometimes you take out, but I think, and I would tell anyone, I'd tell my kids, I tell, I was having a conversation with my cousin on our trip, when we went to Europe. Yeah. And I just said, look, you earn your parents' trust. if you build that trust, you'll get more freedom.
Yeah.
Like you'll get more opportunity. And like in high school, I worked really hard to try to build my parents' trust. And it's like, I didn't have a curfew. You know, I didn't, I could stay up, I could do whatever I want, but I built that trust. You know, they trusted me, but I showed them, I built that with them, and it goes a long way. Like it's, when you do those things, you can have more freedom. And I think that's important. And it's true too with relationships. I think we could relate.
I mean, just on my side, right? Like with my parents, when I was your age, I was doing the opposite stuff as you. Not that I was ever like doing anything crazy, but like I was not building my parents' trust. I was pushing curfew, like probably just messed around enough that I needed a curfew. Like you didn't need one, I did, and I still would push and push and push, and I lost trust in the trust bank, right? Like luckily I freaking survived, but then I like, you know, served a mission, learned things about trust, like kind of mellowed out a little bit. And then, you know, I got married, and with Lauren, it's the opposite. Like we trust each other implicitly. Like I feel like part of the reason why maybe I brag too much about my marriage, but like part of the reason why I feel like we are so happy is because we trust each other to the core. And so now it's like I have more freedom with my wife than I did with my parents, you know.
100%.
Anyways.
And that was one of the biggest signs for me with my marriage.
Yeah.
Is because we had so much trust.
Yeah.
Because you know, like when you're getting started in a relationship and like there's some people, I'm not saying they're all girls, guys are probably this way too, but it's like they're always after you on like this, that, and the other.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Where are you? What are you doing? And
both
like,
genders.
And they just don't trust you. And it's like, how are you going to how we're like supposed to marry someone that doesn't trust you every day? Yeah. That you're going to do the right thing and that you're loyal and things like that, which anyways.
Yeah. And if you're in the dating pool and you're always feeling that, like you don't trust your partner, you probably either need a breakup or you probably need therapy. Because if you're dating a good person, you got to start trusting them a little bit.
Yeah. No, and it goes both ways. And in relationships too, like with a manager or a boss, it's like you gotta do those things. You do those things on their list. You do those things, and you want to build that, and it goes a long way. It pays dividends in the future. So that's good.
Big time, man. I'm glad we got into this a little bit more personal, a little bit less businessy, but I think the principles apply throughout, and that's perfect, man. Let's go ask Maddie if you've built enough. Let's ask Maddie if you've built enough trust, you can go on the trip.
I know. I will.
Let's cap it at that.
Yeah, I will. I'll ask her, and she's been super supportive.
I know. She will. I know.
One thing you mentioned, and I think this is our final thought with this, is having a vacation on the schedule, putting it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Like when Maddie and I, when we got done with our trip, it was like, we should put something on our calendar. This was so great. Like, let's put something on. Let's look forward to it.
Yeah.
And like, if it's on there, and you said this before, we can save for it. Like now you know what you should sacrifice for, like what you should save so you can go there. And maybe I don't need to buy all this stuff, because I love that you mentioned that. Like, I love that you mentioned
I only need one streaming service, right? Like,
yes, like you could buy lots of stuff, or you can try to create memories, and you have to invest for those things. And some things take a lot of time to grow and to yield fruit. Yeah. And investing into relationships is one of those things. It takes a lot of time, and you might not see the benefit until years down the road. For kids, it could be years and years down the road before you actually start to really feel you get my point. But
I think, and this might be very controversial, but I think looking at time with your family as an investment is the best way you can look at it. And I think you need to put a dollar amount to it. Like for me, it's like with my money, tithing, basic business needs, like making sure everything's covered, right? And then next, before all the good investments we have, is experiences with family. Like, I will never put some like I could take this money and invest it in something that would put out more money, or I could invest it in experience with my family. I'll always put that first, then our sweet storage deals, right? And then other deals, and then, stupid stuff last. I don't really have any money left over for stupid stuff. That's why I don't buy stuff.
That's why you prioritize.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of what they say. If first things first, and then what doesn't matter, what matters less gets fallen off.
Exactly. Anyways, that's awesome.
That's good.